I used to believe I built a quiet life. Solid, unshakable, like those stone-bund walls that line the roads up in Yamhill County. I married young, divorced early, and since then I built everything on my own terms. At 35, I kept to myself in a little cedar cabin just outside Clearwater, Oregon. Just me, a Bernese named Nash, and the kind of peace that only comes when the world finally stops asking things of you. I taught art part-time at the high school, mostly ceramics and mixed media. It didn't pay much, but it fed something deeper. On weekends, I'd run a small pottery studio out of my detached garage. Locals bought my bowls and vases at the farmer's market. I liked the weight of clay between my fingers, the way it yielded to pressure, but remembered every motion. Messy, honest, no room for lies in something that turns beneath your hands. Most nights I'd eat dinner on the porch, listening to the redwings and watching the last light fall across the pine tops. And when the dark settled in thick, I would wonder, quietly, shamefully, if maybe this was all the life I'd get. If the loneliness I wore like a scarf around my ribs would stretch on forever. But I never said that out loud. Not to anyone. 3 weeks ago, school started again. September in Clearwater still holds the tail end of summer, but the mornings come cold, and the kids show up in hoodies and half-awake scowls. On that particular Monday, I arrived with coffee in one hand, a crate of supplies balancing precariously in the other. I remember the smell of sawdust and old paint as I unlocked the classroom door. And there she was, already inside. Marissa. "Oh good, you're early," said Principal Evelyn Corbin, smiling in that tight, polished way that always felt like a power move dressed as courtesy. She wore her usual navy pantsuit-like armor. The kind of woman who'd never sneeze in public or admit to having a chipped nail. She rose to her position by making planned casualties out of anyone who got in her way. I'd lived just under her radar for years. Until now. "I wanted to introduce someone," Evelyn continued, gesturing to the woman standing beside her. Tall, blonde, glowing like morning television. She looked about my age but fresher somehow, like she'd been kept in some perfect climate-controlled room and only released when summoned. "This is Harper Wynn. She'll be taking over the ceramics program." My breath snagged. "I'm sorry, what?" Evelyn's smile didn't flicker. "It's a district decision. Budget reallocation. But we're so lucky Harper's available." "She just relocated from San Diego." I looked at Harper then. She smiled wide, all teeth and expensive lip gloss. "Big fan of your work, Marissa. Really inspiring stuff." I didn't answer. I set the crate down too hard and something inside it cracked. "But ceramics is my program," I said slowly. "I built it from scratch. I've ordered the materials, drawn up the curriculum. You can't just replace me. I'm not replacing you." "You're still here for visual design and mixed media," Evelyn said, tilting her head like I was being unreasonable. "You mean the classes no one signs up for?" "Art is art," Harper offered like that solved something. I looked at the two of them. Evelyn with her strategically sympathetic eyebrow raise. Harper with her glossy warmth and the confident way she stood in my space like she already owned it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there while my job was amputated in real time. After they left, I sat behind my desk, hands balled in my lap. I could still smell Harper's perfume in the air, vanilla and musk, synthetic and thick, like it was trying to cover something rotting beneath. She wasn't just taking my class. She was stealing my place, and Evelyn was handing her the keys. Later that week, I sat alone in the studio back home. My clay stayed cold, untouched. The wheel dry. Outside, Nash barked once at a deer, then fell quiet again. Inside, something in me began to calcify. I remembered Harper's laugh during lunch that day, the way the other teachers leaned in toward her like she carried the light. I'd watched from a distance, like some old relic they forgot to retire. I thought about everything I'd given that school, late nights glazing kilns, weekends prepping for student shows. How I'd taught kids to make something beautiful out of broken things. And now I was the broken thing, and no one seemed to care. That night I lit a fire in the hearth and watched it dance. "All right," I whispered to the flame, "you want to play like that? Fine, I'll play." This wasn't about a class anymore. It wasn't even about Harper. It was about something they forgot the minute she walked through that door. I'm Marissa Hale. I built a life out of scraps and wet clay. I don't shatter easy. They think I'll roll over. Let them. War doesn't always start with a scream. Sometimes it begins with silence sharp as a blade. The water lapped low and syrup-warm along the shoreline now, dragging weeds and shattered shells in lazy circles while the sun crawled higher behind a veil of clouds. 2 days had passed since that little revenge of mine, the jagged stone buried inside my newest sandcastle, the satisfying cry of pain from the teenager when he drove his foot into it. I'd replayed the moment again and again, like a secret melody only I could hum. But it wasn't over, not even close. His name was Lucas. 17, bare-chested, crooked smile that screamed trouble, shoulders built like he wrestled trees for fun. He hadn't come alone. He always prowled with 3 other boys around the lake, older ones that drank stolen beers by the fire pits and laughed like everything in the world belonged to them, including the water, including the sand, including me, apparently. You think this is funny? He growled the next morning, his shadow spilling over my newest castle. It was smaller, humble, even, no rock this time. I hadn't meant to start a war, I just wanted space. I kept my eyes on the drawbridge. I didn't make you kick it. You could have warned me, he said. Left a sign. You didn't ask. He crouched fast, his fingers digging into the rampart, crumbling it with hardly any force. You think I'm dumb? His voice had dropped, low and coiled. You think you're clever, hiding rocks where people walk? I didn't ask you to walk there either. You mess with me again, he said, voice barely louder than the lapping water. I'll bury that smug face in the sand next time. His friends were watching from the tree break, arms folded, lazy grins stretched across sunburnt faces. One of them mimed a foot stomping. Another laughed. I waited until he walked away before I rebuilt. Not because I felt brave, but because if I didn't, I'd spend the whole summer afraid. I packed the wet sand tighter, my fingers raw from stone and shell scrapes. I shaped walls with slow, even breaths, but my stomach curled into itself like a fist. Later that afternoon, a park warden in a green shirt and mirrored sunglasses found us. Are you Milo Cheswick? He asked. I blinked. Yeah, he crouched beside me. I got a complaint from another family about a dangerous object buried in one of your sand structures. That wasn't, I started, then stopped. He raised a brow. You put a rock in there, I nodded slowly. He kept kicking them down. It wasn't meant to hurt him. He just look, the man said, measuring his words. I know you're not a troublemaker, but you can't booby-trap anything on public land. No matter the reason, if his parents wanted, they could file a report. My whole throat closed in. Report me? I'm 12. He softened. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying next time, come find me before you take things into your own hands. I nodded, too stunned to argue. Then Lucas walked by, towel slung around his neck, dragging his heel through a castle tower I hadn't even finished. Oops, he said, not even looking. The warden didn't see. Of course he didn't. That night, I didn't speak during dinner. Mom asked if I was okay. I said the food was just salty. The truth tasted worse. The next few days unraveled like thread from an old hoodie. I stopped building during the daytime. Instead, I waited until early evening, when the lake felt deserted and the wind whistled low through the reeds. That's when I could carve little kingdoms again, small ones, nothing eye-catching, just enough to remind myself I still existed. But Lucas noticed everything. On the 5th afternoon, just as I stood from smoothing out a tiny circular watchtower, I heard the crunch of footsteps behind me. You really don't give up, huh? He said. I flinched. Go away. You think castles make you better than people. No, I think not wrecking them makes you better. He stepped closer. I could smell his sweat, his sunscreen, the sour linger of lake water. His voice dropped. You know what really sucks, he whispered. I didn't even want to kick your castle the first time. Jamie dared me. Said you were acting like you own the lake. I figured one stomp, no big deal. I turned to face him. So why keep doing it? Because now you act like it matters. It hit me like a wave, too cold, violent, and unexpected. I looked at him, really looked. How he stood straighter when his friends were watching. How his laughter always lagged a beat behind the others like someone trying to catch up. He wasn't a leader. He was just afraid of not being worth their attention. I almost said that out loud, but he moved first. With one shove, he tipped the entire structure into the water. It slumped with a noise like wet bread hitting pavement, and I snapped. Stop touching my stuff, I screamed. People turned. Mothers, kids. A man with a camera, I didn't care. You get off on this? You think you're tough bullying a 12-year-old? You're a joke. Lucas froze. His ears burned red, but it wasn't over. You know what your problem is, he said, eyes narrowing. You think being smart makes you safe. But this isn't school, Milo. Out here, nobody cares what you build. Nobody cares what you know. They just care who they can step on. I spit the words before fear could stop me. Then maybe you should stop acting like a cockroach. His hand twitched at his side. Touch me, I dared him louder than I meant to. See what happens. A whistle blew, the warden again. He jogged toward us, cutting through the heat-thick air. Everything okay here, boys? Lucas cleared his throat, fake smile snapping into place. All good, sir, just a misunderstanding. Mum, the warden said. His gaze lingered on me. Milo, my throat clenched, my eyes burned. I wanted to finally say everything. But I didn't. Yeah, I whispered. All good. Lucas walked away without looking back. That night, I waded out into the lake alone. The water bit cold around my knees. I let it soak my shorts, my ankles, the hem of my shirt. I found a rock, just a small one, and tossed it. It skipped twice before vanishing. I stared out where it sank. What's the point of building anything, I thought, if someone's always waiting to ruin it? I went to bed with sand still in my hair and no answers in my chest. And then the final blow came. The next morning, Dad handed me the phone. "Someone from the lake office wants to speak with you." I took it, palms already damp. "Hello?" A woman with a clipped, flat tone spoke. "Milo Cheswick? Yes, we've received a formal complaint from another family about harassment. From you." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "They claim you've been verbally abusive toward another guest's child. Lucas Mathers." I didn't start it. "He's the one, he broke my stuff, he pushed me. My job isn't to decide fault," she said. "But I need you to stop engaging, effective immediately. If anything else happens, we'll have no choice but to ask your family to leave the campground." I couldn't breathe. She thanked me and hung up. I stood on the porch steps while the wind pulled at my shirt. Lucas had done something worse than break my castles. He'd broken the truth, snapped it in half, and made everyone believe the wrong side. And the worst part? I believed my words had power, but all I'd managed to do was make things worse. I sat on the smooth shoreline stones, the lake whispering against the edge like it pitied me. Sunlight slanted through the tall pines, soft gold among the fading green, but it felt hollow. I remember dipping my fingers into the water, watching the ripples carry across the surface, invisible messengers with nowhere to go. No one spoke to me after what happened. Not my little sister, not my uncle, not even the younger kids who had once watched me build with wide eyes and quiet awe. The last sandcastle had been too much. I thought I'd built a trap for Theo, something that would finally make him stop. After all, he'd destroyed everything else I'd made. I'd thought if he hurt himself, maybe not badly, just enough, he'd learn something. But when he screamed and grabbed his foot, when his mom came running and the lifeguard got involved, everything turned faster than I could breathe. No one cared about the broken towers, the ruined moats, the seaweed trees. They saw a kid crying on the sand, cradling a purpled toe, and they saw me, glaring in the background, fists clenched around wet sand. I didn't say a word to defend myself. Couldn't, because I was ashamed. "Why'd you do it?" my uncle asked later, when we were packing up our towels. I didn't answer him, not really. I just stared at the sand under our feet and muttered. He kept kicking them down. "Doesn't mean you get to break him," he said, soft but hard in the way that cuts you behind the ribs. The worst part? I knew he was right. The next morning, the lake fog hung low over the water, ghostly pale, and I slipped out while everyone else still slept. My feet left wet imprints in the sand, and each one felt heavy, like the lake tried to pull me back. I didn't come out here with a plan. I came to apologize, not to Theo. I still wasn't ready for that. I sat down in the remains of my last castle, just a collapsed mound, wet where waves had touched it overnight. I dug through it absently, fingers brushing against the edges of buried stones, rough, cold, too hard. Too much of me had gone into that rock. I closed my eyes and breathed. What was I trying to do all this time? Prove I could build something that lasted. Punish someone who couldn't leave things alone? No, I was trying to matter, to someone besides me. Every time my castle fell, I rebuilt it bigger, bolder, better. But not once did I ever ask myself why it had to stand in the first place. And not once did I listen to the people who said, maybe build it somewhere safer. I didn't want safer. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to win. Theo's older sister, Mara, found me there. Barefoot denim jacket hanging off one shoulder, she stood at the edge of the beach like she didn't know whether to come closer or keep pretending I didn't exist. "You made him cry," she said flatly. I didn't look up. "He broke 6 sandcastles. He's 10. I scoffed. 10's old enough to know better, is it? She crouched beside me and picked up a piece of driftwood I'd once used as a gatepost. "He has a learning delay. He doesn't process things the way most kids do." My chest stopped. "What?" "He thinks the castles are. For him, obstacles, games. He wants to battle the monster and be the hero." I blinked. Sand crusted the corners of my eyes, so he wasn't trying to ruin them. He thought he was saving someone. Mara nodded. "Doesn't excuse it. But he wasn't doing it out of spite." I couldn't speak for a minute. The ground felt like it had shifted under me. My anger, my plans, everything I'd poured into those towers, I'd been fighting the wrong war. Why the hell didn't anyone tell me? I asked, voice cracking. "Because you don't listen, Miles." She wasn't wrong. All those afternoons people tried to talk to me and I waved them off. All the times my uncle offered to help and I said no, I got it. I'd been so full of the need to win, I couldn't see past my own battle lines. And the worst part? I'd hurt someone who didn't understand what I was trying to protect. When I returned to the camp, I didn't speak. I just nodded to my uncle, grabbed the folding shovel, the strainer, and the old bucket with the cracked handle. Then I walked back to the shore. The lake shimmered under weak morning light, cool steam drifting around its edges. I walked until the water touched my ankles, then dropped to my knees beside a flat, wide stretch of wet sand. This time, I wouldn't build for defense. This time, I'd build a story, a hero's journey. 10 towers, one for each level. A bridge, a guarded gate, a dragon carved from kelp. A tiny flag on the highest turret, made from red fabric I tore from last year's swim trunks. This wasn't a trap, it was an invitation. Hours passed. People gathered to watch. I didn't speak to them. I didn't smile. I just worked, steady hands, focused mind, every line and slope built from thought instead of anger. Even my little sister joined in. She brought me shells for windows and helped line the moat with polished stones. When it was done, I walked back up the sand and waited. Theo saw it first. He froze, standing near the edge of the trees, clutching a half-eaten sandwich. His eyes lit up not with mischief, not with menace, but with wonder. He looked at me, I nodded, he ran. What he did next shocked everyone. He didn't kick it. He touched the drawbridge gently, then stepped back. Then, cheeks flushed, chest puffed out, he shouted, I did it, I saved them all. Then he raised his arms to the sky like a champion. I didn't say anything, but I smiled. Because finally I'd built something that stood. Not because it was hidden, not because it was defended, because it welcomed someone in. That night I sat by the fire with a quiet heart. My uncle handed me a cup of cocoa. You figured it out, he said. Yeah, what changed? I stopped building for me, he nodded. That's when we start creating real things, Miles. I turned the cup in my hands, warmth seeping into my fingers. I'm not just a builder, am I? No, he said. You're a storyteller. And I knew in that moment there was one more story I had left to write. Not in sand, not in towers, but in truth. Tomorrow I'd find Theo again, and I'd tell him I was sorry, because the final plan, it wasn't to outsmart him. It was to do right by him. No fear, no turning back. The rock had been buried for 3 days. Not just any rock, this one felt like it had been forged by the wrath of the lake itself. Flat on one side, jagged on the other, and heavy enough to take both hands and my full 11-year-old strength to dig it into the sand without it showing. I had even scooped a little moat around it, like a natural focal point, just to bait him in. You sure you want to do this? My sister Ivy had asked, arms crossed, eyes squinting against the sun. I didn't look up from my work. He keeps wrecking them. So take a picture first, then let it go. I pressed the driftwood drawbridge into place like it mattered more than anything in the world. He laughs when I'm watching. That silence from her said more than agreement. It said she remembered. The red-haired boy, maybe 16, definitely too old to be spending his time punting sandcastles like they owed him something. He strutted around barefoot in a pack of other teenage wolves, chewing gum with his mouth open like that was the style, cracking cans of soda, and letting their empties roll into the water. His name was Kellen, and if he'd had a signature scent, it would have been cheap body spray and lake algae. I waited. That afternoon, I perched a little way down the beach, pretending to gather shells with a plastic bucket. Every few minutes, I'd glance up. He was there again, tossing a volleyball with the usual crew, barking laughter, his eyes darting to where my latest masterpiece rose proud and ornate in the shallow water. They'd seen it. Bet you $10 I can punt it so far it hits the dock, he shouted. I didn't flinch. My heart thundered behind my ribs like a caged bird, but I didn't flinch. Kellen strutted down toward it, barefoot as always, that sly smirk stretched across his face. He didn't even slow down. Didn't even glance at the intricate archway I'd carved or the towers I'd stacked with wet patience and sunburned hands. He reared his leg back and slammed his foot into the heart of it. The dull, hard thunk echoed across the water like a muffled bell. He howled. Not like someone who stubbed a toe, but like someone who just tried to kick a mountain and learned the world didn't care how old you were. He dropped to one knee, clutching his foot, face buried in his elbow. His friends went silent, one of them jogging over but not laughing. None of them laughed. Oh man, the tallest one murmured, Kel, that rock's bleeding. Ivy had wandered down beside me by then, arms folded, watching the scene unfold with a slow shake of her head. He okay? She asked. I shrugged. My castle's fine. One of the girls from his group spotted me. Hey, did you do this? I stood, pulled my shoulders up like armor. Do what? Her face crumpled, caught between fury and confusion. You put a rock in it, it's a sandcastle. I blinked slow. They're made on rocks, it's the lake. Kellen didn't look up. Just sat there cursing under his breath, his heels smeared red. His friends didn't speak to me again. But the silence was the apology I never would have gotten otherwise. That night I leaned back in the fold-out chair beside the fire pit, arms limp, the skin on my shoulders tight from sun. Mom handed me a marshmallow, I didn't even roast it. You're quiet tonight, she said, just tired. Did the teenager come back? I nodded. He kicked the castle again, Mom's lips twitched, and it held. She leaned over and kissed the top of my head. That's all that matters, sweetheart. Build something strong enough, you don't need to say anything at all. I almost told her everything. Rock, the setup, the moment I'd stood like a soldier while he knelt like a child. But I didn't, because that quiet part of me, the one that twisted tight and stubborn when people tried to ruin the beautiful things, I knew it had gotten what it wanted, and it didn't need anyone's permission. The next day, Kellen didn't show up. The beach felt different. Not better, exactly, just clearer. I built another castle anyway, not to lure anyone, not to prove anything, just because I wanted to. Ivy sat beside me, handing me sticks, smoothing mud into walls. You proud of it? She asked, not looking up. I wiped my hands on my shorts. Not yet, but I will be. A gull circled overhead, its shadow slicing across the sand. I closed my eyes, remembered the sound of his howl. The feel of the rock, cool and heavy in my palms as I buried it like a secret. The weight of revenge, not cruel, but balanced. Later, long after the castle crumbled on its own and tourists packed up their towels, Ivy turned to me and said, You do know that was kinda mean, right? I smiled. He used his foot. I used what I had. She laughed, but she didn't argue. Even now, years later, I sometimes feel that rock in my hands again, the scrape of its edges, the way it dug into my palms like it knew what we were about to do together. And I think about how sometimes, when people destroy the things you build, you don't need to fight back with louder words or broken rules. Sometimes, you just need to build smarter and hide the truth where it matters most. Underneath, beneath the surface, where it can hurt the worst, or maybe where it can last the longest.